problem with that. All right, let me go in here and find it. Put on some nice music. I love your Christmas wreath, man.
Yeah. Well, keeping in the festive spirit,
You guys celebrate, what is it, Boxing Day, or is that Canada? I guess that's Canada.
We do Boxing Day as well. That's a public holiday as well.
Oh, it is?
I went for an early morning cold dip with hundreds of other people.
How
got
cold?
To keep going, at my age, got to keep going.
Well, you're only like my age, aren't you? I thought you were
coming up to 64. You look older than me.
Yeah. I'm not actually older, but I look older.
Oh dear. I hope we're going to be serious tonight, are we?
I think we're going to be whatever we're supposed to be.
Of course.
All right, let's see. Here's I'm gonna. Oh, it's not gonna let me. Okay, so I'm going to share this out. Let's see. Yeah, still going. Let's see. Yeah, we got 4 people in the house. We're getting a slow start on this show with Dr. Joe. These shows resonate. Please share, as we've been suppressed a little bit, which is why we're going independent. More information on that soon. I don't have my normal sound set up. All right, a couple more. Let's see. So, why are you always laughing, Dr. Joe? You're making jokes.
Well, I think it's a cover. It's a cover, really.
Yeah?
No, it's not really. I've been miserable for such a long time, and I've realized that the joy of living is my theme. I look miserable on the outside, but generally inside I've always got a chuckle going and a tongue in the cheek, really.
Yeah.
I take the piss a lot, but it's not meant to be harmful. But lots of people seem to get upset by it. But I'm sorry about that, really. What can you do? You can't win them all, as they say.
Yeah, I ran into a friend of mine. I think yesterday. Was it yesterday? No, it must have been the day before yesterday. Actually, both days. But when I first saw her, she said something happened on the 21st. Something happened. There was and I had seen the same thing energetically. I had seen the same thing, and I had talked about it on the show. That on the 21st, there was I saw this line, and I saw all this work that you've done, I've done, we've all done and put out there on behalf of the collective, which has really been a reflection of our personal experience, awakening, and so on. And I could see the energy of our work up to that line, which was the same date. And I saw us stop working, 3D-ish, stop working in the physical, and the energy from our work going on and on and on in perpetuity in all directions, all dimension. And the message was, the work's been done.
Yeah.
It's just going to show up now in the linear, all the reciprocation, and it's a different ball game. We've moved into a different world. And so, the message was it's time. We just are. It just is. There's no more pressing. But when I got in the car with her, she said, something happened on the 21st. And I said, what was that? She said, something changed. It's from here out, there's no more bullshit.
Yeah.
Everything is clear. And either you deal with your stuff or you don't deal with your stuff, and it's going to get louder and louder and louder in your face. And one thing about the universe, we can point fingers at this person, that person, this event, this country, this religion, this political party, whatever we want to do. The neighbor's dog, The roosters out here crowing all night long, but the universe speaks loud to us directly, and we live in an age now where it's not going to let us go. It's going to shake us. It's going to shake us and shake us and shake us until, until we're in complete surrender. But I think the laughing thing is probably the purest wisdom we have now, because it's all about the intentions. And as long as we're not degrading anybody, which I know your humor's not, even though you made fun of me in the bathtub.
I see that you've got bigger breasts than me as well, McShee. I was a bit envious of, really.
You see,
Sorry. See, I describe myself as gay from the waist up, and my feminine side's expanding, but I see yours is expanding quicker than mine is, Oh dear. Sorry about that, old chap.
No, there's nothing. Two things I've learned, if it's the truth and it's authentic and it's real, usually brings about, a high degree of vulnerability too, which I think is the real key. Then it's okay to be stated, especially on this show. And two is I'm way past the point of embarrassment. To me, I am soul means I'm not afraid to show my ass. And obviously, I didn't know I was going to be in the bathtub with a man bun, but I'm glad you noticed my finer points.
Yeah. Talking of showing your ass, I mean, it is to me. It's all about our souls. I mean, our souls, and it's as you say, I am soul. I am that I am. What does all that mean? And when I thought I was being authentic for a long time, I was just being rebellious, really, and it was just my ego's sort of way of still keeping away from itself, really. So I believe in this being and becoming, and we're becoming much more quickly than we realize, really. And as you say, the mirror's getting closer. It's more polished. It's just reflecting back to us what we're giving out straight away, really. In my life, I've been deluded, and my prayer is, and I pray to my heart. I just, I've like I said the other time we met, I don't put a label on what I'm talking to. It's the deepest part of my being, and my heart intelligence, and I have a sort of inner guru in there, that I sort of tune into, which is me anyway. And I have this conversation, and the prayer is, please don't allow me to delude myself anymore. And please don't allow me to delude other people as well. Just show me the truth of who I am, what I am. And because like you, I feel unshockable now, really. And I see all the atrocities and everything else going on in the world. And I know underneath it all, it's absolutely perfect. The world is perfect as it is, for us to learn the lessons that we came here to learn. That's the way I see things at the moment.
Yeah, and and if we get too desperate and don't know what to do, we can always come out with invent the first ascension man breast bras.
Well, no, absolutely, because there's nothing worse than jogger's nipple, and it's getting it's getting worse all the time for me, because I do a lot of running. Well, I can't call it running really; it's just like brisk walking. Bit of a jog going on, but it's painful. Right. When you do a marathon, it's very, very painful if you don't get it right at the start. So I've found some lubricating stuff which works well, both from my bottom half and my top half at the same time. But again, it used to be knowledge, and then it became wisdom. Through felt experience, and I think that's what life's all about. Is you can talk about something if you've gone through it, but if it's still theory, or what I'm calling theory, it's still theory. Then don't say anything really. Not interested in theories anymore.
Even then, whatever you've gone through. I remember having a show one time, and the lady that was hosting it with me was a cancer survivor, and the one of the guests was a cancer survivor, or I think maybe actually had cancer at the time. And so the lady that was the hostess that was a survivor said, "Listen, I don't know what your cancer is like. I know what my cancer was like. I don't know. I don't have the experience that you're having. That's your experience." And I think that's another thing we have to remember too. whatever we've experienced and whatever we received is meant for us first and foremost. There is some type of collective parallel message energetically we can put out, but it's not the same gospel for everybody. There's 8 billion people. There's 8 billion internal good book gospels. None of them are the same. I love what your humility, especially as you use these analogies of the cold nipples in the rain.
Yeah. It's much better in the warm, but the cold, it sort of brings it home to you much more quickly, really.
Yeah. Well, you had to get in touch with the divine feminine.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. No,
But
the other morning I went on this Boxing Day dip, and it's a charity thing, and we all jumped into this freezing cold water, but just to see the glee on people's faces, I mean, that's what really, it just makes me feel alive, Todd, and people say to me, or they've always said to me, you want to grow up? It's absolutely impossible for me to grow up. It really is. I've tried to be responsible. I've tried to be serious. It's just not possible, and in academia, as people, when they see anybody laughing, they think they haven't got enough work to do,
yeah,
yeah. So I can't, I was miserable long enough. People used to describe me as being miserably happy, because people would say to me, how are you? And I'd say, well, everything's fine, really, and I get around the corner and feel like crying my eyes out,
Yeah.
But it's a bit like now, I'm not always happy and joyful. Sometimes I wake up, and I feel deeply, deeply, deeply down, and that still happens to me. So, I mean, I've got a long way to go.
What do you do in those moments? How do you get through those moments, or how do you overcome them, or process them, or however you want to put it?
I just sit right in the middle of them, mate, and allow it to dissipate. I mean, because I think to jump in and try and fix it, that's my ego's way of trying to fix things, because there's almost like a judgment that comes in to say, you've been in this game for a long time now, Joe. Surely you shouldn't be feeling like this, like Saint Joseph and all that sort of business. But I've realized now that's another trap. All I need to do is mindfully feel my way right into the center of it and just sit with it until it dissipates. And I think, to me, the beauty is to be found in the belly of the beast. And I think that we need to love the beast, right? We need to love it, and we don't need to be slaying dragons or fighting stuff. And I think, peace of mind to me is the most important thing in my whole life now. And peace of mind is inversely proportional to expectations. So I just sit with it now. I don't expect anything at all. I go to that still bit, and sooner or later it just dissolves. And there's always a little subtle lesson to be learned from it. And the lesson is acceptance is the key.
You just said something. You said peace of mind is directly proportional to expectations. Is that what you said?
Inversely proportional. That means the more expectations you have, the less peace of mind. Yeah.
Inversely proportionate. Okay. Yeah, that makes total sense, because as one goes up, the other goes down. As one goes down, the other goes up. Yeah. That's a great little meme, a great little comment. Because it's a simple one. And I guess when we go into the belly of the beast, we can either come out slinging arrows, or, like you said, sitting in that belly of the beast and allowing it to just wash over us, until, I guess, in one way or another, we're integrated with it and one with it and accept it, like you said.
Yeah, I was once told that, if you don't want to fight, don't get into the boxing ring, and it makes perfect sense to me that you sit on the outside and just become an observer. I understand truly what that means now. And, you can't have peace of mind, Todd, if you're fighting. How can that be, So all this stuff, what happens, and what's happened to me is, once I woke up clearly and rubbed the sleep out of my eyes, because I think there's a lot of people waking up now with still a lot of sleep in their eyes, and they're still rubbing and seeing glimpses of what it is. But this fury comes up, look what they've done to us, and nobody's done anything to us, mate. Honestly, it's either we signed up for this specific lesson, right, and it was fear and ignorance that allowed us for these things to happen to us. I mean, there's a phrase that I was taught is that if you're pointing a finger like that, first of all, That's the victim finger, and there's always three fingers coming back at you, So as soon as you want to blame something outside of yourself, you've missed the point. You give your power away, and really the three fingers coming back is, I call this the ism fingers, I,
Yeah.
self, and me. How have
Yeah.
I allowed this? What
Yeah.
part of myself has allowed this to happen? And so again, when I sense my finger going out to point what's going on the outside, I've missed the point really that everything's going on the inside and it's projecting on the outside, and I do most of the time. I remember that I'm tuned into it. But when I get hungry, angry, lonely, and tired, I get hungry a lot because I love food, So when I'm hungry, my instinct to fight and flight is kicked in. When I'm angry, it's because some situation, some person, some place or thing isn't acting in accordance with my expectations of them. When I'm lonely, I can pick up the phone, I can cuddle my missus, I can do all those sort of things. And believe it or not, when I'm tired, I should go to sleep and get some rest, So they're the physical things that can easily be sorted out, really. Because my journey, if you like to use that expression, or the process I've gone through, is I started off in instinct, and I think every human does this, and then it moves into intellect. Then we start to think for ourselves, and we develop all these egomaniacal ideas of how life should be. And then from there, then when we surrender the ego and the attachments to it, we move more inwards. Then we come from the outside, we turn our eyes inwards, and we start looking at where we're going then based upon inner knowledge, and that becomes intuition. And I think at the end of the journey, just before you pop off and get ready for another go of this snakes and ladders game, you become inspired and full of inspiration and stuff, and that's to me how it works, those four eyes.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. So what is the significance of the phrase, the higher you go, the harder you fall, in this energy that we're in now? Does that jump out at you or not?
It does. I think the higher we ascend, I think the opposition, if you like, as the ancient Kabbalists call it, the opposition is always trying to drag us down again. And I see that as two things. My whole life now revolves around quantum physics and quantum mechanics. And I think there's two forces. There's Eros, which is an ascension force, right? And there's Xanatos as well, which is a force that comes downwards. So once we're tired, we are grabbed then by gravity and brought downwards. And I think this is where depression comes in, So unless we actually rest, recuperate, rebalance, then that erotic energy, if you like, not sexual, but erotic is a completely different thing, really. It's a Kundalini thing. When we get the balance right, then both Eros and Xanatos work together. That's my understanding. I might have, there might be different phrases or sayings in different cultures, but to me, it's yin and yang. And I think there's been an imbalance for a long time where we've basically been knocking hell out of each other. And, the way I see it now, and this is what we talked about last time, is yoga. Yoga means union. And I think once you understand that the power to recover, if you like, you recover your soul's purpose and your true I am connection is in the heart. It's in the heart of hearts, And I think once you touch that in a still point, then that's the birth of what I call the sacred child. And I do a meditation called Cradling the Sacred Child. And basically, it's the left hand on the top, the right hand underneath over the solar plexus. And it's almost like you're cuddling, right, a sacred child, and you're caring for it, you're nurturing it. And when you listen in deeply enough, you can hear its heartbeat. And if you can synchronize your heartbeat with the child's heartbeat, then everything starts to move, recover, recuperate and stuff. And you get much more insight, So that's what my science work's about, really restoring the balance at the level of the heart.
I like that too. I don't know if you have other techniques like that, but I like that too because there's no thinking in it. There's no affirmations, or I'm not saying anything against that, but that just seems to me kind of linear now. I like the alignment approach of it. It's like I hear tone and I know just to shut up and align with the tone. Yeah. And take all the thought out of it, and it seems to work. Like you said, it just brings that balance. That's a very deep meditation you just described from somebody who's always cracking jokes, I mean, that's a really deep. How long does that meditation normally take?
Just until you feel sort of connected and balanced, really. See, there's a condition in in medicine called accentuated antagonism, and I think that that's what the world is going through at the moment. Is since the awakening, there's been more and more turbulence emotionally, and really, you talked about left and right brain synthesis. I call that what's actually happening is there's confusion now there's cognitive dissonance where the left and the right hemispheres are knocking shit out of each other. That's a technical expression, for creating turbulence, and this creates like turbulence at the level of the heart. And I think once you can feel that the heart's turbulence, you can understand that there's a mismatch between what's going on in the hemispheres. East is east and west is west, and never the twain shall meet. But I think now is time when we've got to understand that the twain must meet, but we can't balance the head out from the head. We've got to come out of both sides, sit in the heart, sit in silence, breathe deeply, and as Buddha would say, become aware of your breathing and get in touch then with the natural rhythm of breathing, not any forced breathing that we've learned over time, because even our breathing's being conditioned over time through fear. We need to step out of that fear conditioning and allow the natural rhythm of our soul's resonance to come back in, and then our hemispheres will realign, they'll reconnect, and that to me is what really the mystical union's all about. It's when Ida and Pingala, yin and yang, sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, when they start working in coherence, everything changes. It's like we open up then to universal consciousness, and we start to see step at a time what this whole game's all been about. I seem very serious now. I am the most light-hearted person I know. Because underneath this grinning and this laughing, is a deadly seriousness. Because I think it's people like ourselves who are maybe a little bit further along the pathway, just a bit. It's our job really just to turn around, grab people along and say, look, according to me, this is what happens next. It may be different for you, but here's some principles that may help you.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like I said before, mate, every soul is personally responsible for their own journey, and I can see that I've interfered in many people's lives up to this point, only because I can see the pain that they're going through. But sometimes the most kindly thing that you can do is pull the rug from under their feet and let them hit that rock bottom that they need to see, or feel.
Yeah, or watch them fall off the cliff,
Yeah, and that's the sad part, mate. That still hurts me because I can see clearly what people need to do, in my opinion. And I just have to. It's called detaching with love. It's not that I don't care. And some people say to me, "You just don't care." It couldn't be further from the truth, because I can feel what they're going through. I do care, but I know it's not my responsibility to take the actions.
No, and the thing is, if you do that, you're disempowering yourself, and you're really disempowering them, because you're enabling whatever patterns got them to that point, and you're going into an old pattern. I mean, it's part of this line that my friend described on the 21st, 22nd. This maybe with the solstice, whatever, but there's definitely something going on, and that's why I brought up the adage of the higher you go, the harder you fall. I always say the higher your soul goes, the higher your ego goes, and I think one of the big words is responsibility. I love that you can honestly use the word opinion too, because again, we're turning around and giving what we know. We're not saying it's the gospel. We're just saying this, and there's got to be a thread in between the lines, in between the words, a frequency that's coming from the intention of the heart that has no agenda, that is like that meditation that you were talking about with the inner child, where you're aligning your heartbeat with it's just a nonverbal method, really a natural method, as natural as listen to your own breathing, that's actually passing these activations and codes on and expansion on. But certainly, what you're saying is true. I just see this as a situation now where it's so loud, and that responsibility or lack thereof carries a much faster, swifter, more encompassing effect, and those effects are only going to one. Well, ultimately coming to one person, and that's the person that puts it out or doesn't put it out.
Yeah. No, I agree totally, mate. I mean, that, based upon what I've been through, what you've been through, and stuff like that, I'm talking about from direct, personal, lived experience and the feelings associated with it. I'm beginning to see that human life is all about, like I said the other day, it's all about feelings. It's all about feelings, because that's where the true depth of experience comes from. When it's a felt sense of, what it's all about. And I think the more that we can sort of align with the flow and de-obstruct the fear, because fear just blocks, there's a phrase I like is fear, an evil and corroding thread. The fabric of our existence is shot through with it. And what that means to me is, that's our DNA. That's the information encoded in our DNA. That's the personal encoding, the familial encoding, cultural encoding, nation encoding, global encoding. I think that we've all virtually got to trace our steps backwards, right?
Yeah.
To feel the feelings, not only our personal, but the transpersonal stuff. So we're almost feeling what our forefathers felt, it's amazing, really, and I think that we get to not only go down our bloodlines, but once you've sort of gone through that, then you go through different cultural lines as well, so that you've got a sense of how each of the 12 tribes, right, spoke, felt, acted, and reacted in all sorts of situations. So, this is a big thing, this, and I think that's when true compassion comes in. When people can honestly say at the level of the heart, I really know what you're feeling here.
Yeah. I think that word is a big word. It's a very human word. And, we think our feelings are something that make us weak. When I speak of that, I'm talking about the deepest heartfelt love, the highest anger, the sadness, and as we talked about at the top of the show, that's been a big leap for me. A big activation or elevation for me has been when I started to sit with my feelings and not judge them and just feel them and not project them on anyone. Just say, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to be angry. I'm going to sit here and be sad. Yeah. And the funny thing is, there was no, connect the dot methodology to go from point A to point Z. It just, you sat there, and just like you said with the breathing meditation, when the two heartbeats align, it could be 3 minutes, it could be 30 minutes. Yeah. But when that alignment comes, your body actually knows. It's like every cell in your body takes an exhale.
Yeah, and I think, as we said previously, when you sit with it, it's transformed through the heart. It's almost like a catharsis. A cleansing of the soul. And rather than all that energy we wasted in some sort of justified angry outburst, it transforms then. It gives us more vitality. It gives us expanded consciousness, and we start to ascend further, if you like, up Jacob's ladder. I don't see things in linear ways at all now, really. Don't get me wrong. I think that the right-hand side of the brain is mostly being blocked, because we've been forced into a sort of a linear way of life, because we're easily more controllable then and stuff. And I'm not going to get deeply into that. But I think as the right brain expands, we can play out more, really. And as the right brain, I think that that's connected to the spiritual realms, or the cosmos, And I think what happens is the energy or the information in the invisible realms comes in through our right brain. It crosses what's called the corpus callosum into our left brain and then into earth. So like I said the other day is, I think that we're here to bring heaven to earth and not to sort of live in some sort of fantasy island where our feet are firmly planted in the clouds, not getting anywhere at all, really. And I spent a lot of my time in fantasy thinking and almost blissed out either chemically or even through meditation. I can be blissed out, but I think there's a stage beyond bliss, and it's called getting your feet back on the ground and starting to walk the talk. Really, I think that's what it's
Yeah,
about.
that's
And you know what,
that's a
I
great
could be
point.
totally wrong here. I could be totally wrong, but it just feels so deeply correct. Really, is all I'm saying is I'm saying what I feel. I feel and what I say. I could be wrong, but I'm seeing it this way. Other people see it the other way. I try and take on board everything that people are saying because there may be a gem in that. And if it doesn't resonate with me there and then, I discard it, not totally and forever, because it might be on its way back to come into me left ear next week and make more sense then, you see.
Yeah, yeah. My wife has been receiving almost 18, 19 years, I think, and so she received a long time ago that all the information she's downloading doesn't mean anything until it's embodied. And even knowing her the last 3 years, it took me a couple of years. I'd always ask her, "What does that mean? Now tell me again. Like tell me again," because it just wouldn't register. And then I started to realize, I mean, we're conscious in this body for a reason. We're human for a reason. We're losing. We're moving away or pushing away or denying or trying to set ourselves apart from the human part of us. But the fact is, this is the most important part. Otherwise, why are we here? Because what is the one thing we did not come into this world with? Being a human being. We came into this world with everything else in the left brain stored or in the right brain, whatever, in the Akashic, whatever you want to call it. But the human is the hero.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the human is the fucking hero. All right. And I will go to the end. And maybe that changes. And again, I love what you say because it takes a very humble person to say, I may not be right. Just to be that open, because this is how this game works too. What gets us to a certain point, or who got us to a certain point, isn't always going to get us to the next level, so to speak. And that goes for patterns, teachings, whatever the vehicle was for an individual or even a society or community or a family or a relationship. Things change. That's one thing about this universe. And that's what we represent here. We represent conscious change. It's one thing that the universe is always changing invariably, but we're in a situation where we're actually become conscious of who we are, what we're a part of, and we can actually have a conscious growth, which is change, a conscious say in where do we want to take this universe, because it's not being a hamster on the wheel or being a widget on a conveyor belt. We are not just inanimate objects. We are the creator. We are God Goddess. We are that in the flesh. And this is this is exciting. It's exciting. But to me, listening to you and other people like you, it's that humility, that humanism, the humanness of them, of their frequency that speaks louder to me than anything else that I've heard out there. There's more gold in aligning that human with whatever multidimensional aspects, God, Goddess, communions, messages we receive. There's nothing more powerful than that human coming out and saying, well, this is what happened to me. This is my opinion. I just want to be here to help you. And let's get up again tomorrow and do it again.
Yeah. And I think what you do today it may be exactly the opposite of what you need to do tomorrow. So, if you can't take it or leave it or step forward or back off, then you're still limited, and there's lots of developmental pathways that people have described. And as I say, if you can't stand up for yourself or back off when you need to, right, then you're not flexible, it's like sex as well. If you can take it or leave it, then you're not controlled by it, and so you
That's
can move.
right. That's a great idea.
And the other thing is in society, if you can be on your own and you're comfortable with that, but you can be in the middle of a crowd and be comfortable with that as well, then you're not controlled by it. So each one of those steps, and people, I'll not talk about people, I'll talk about myself. I've had to sit at each of those steps and saying, have I got any fear associated with this? And then I'll put myself through a situation. And if I feel a grip in the gut where the fight or flights come in, I just sit with that and I say, please show me, because I'm talking about my deeper intelligence. Please
Yeah.
show me what needs to be done here. And I'll get, you need to seek that person out and you need to apologize to them face to face. And then I'll get, ooh, ooh, you know, because the little boy wants to come in and say, oh, surely not today. You know, and, you know, I've ducked and dived and dodged and weaved. And I can tell by looking at you that you understand what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. Well, that and my wife just played a joke on me at the same time, which is perfect alignment with you.
But I mean, I have been told clearly that I was born with the spirit of Heyoka, you know, the Native American shaman joker stuff.
You know? I'm the same way. I'm the same way. I've been this way. Oh well, you know, like you, I went through a period where I lost it. You know, I didn't laugh, but I love something you said. I want to go back to it. Something popped in my mind, and it was because I like to try to simplify everything, you know. And it was the more controlling you are, the more you're controlled. Yeah, and we're speaking of the experience here. The more controlling you are, the more controlled you are, period. You know, and you can, and that sums it up right there. You're going to try to control your environment. You're going to try to control, you know, a lot of light workers, empaths. You know, empaths was a big word for the 7 years I've been doing this actively online, and they talk about how they don't like going into crowds. They don't like going here, but they've also been talking about for the last year or so how they're starting to step out into the world. Yeah. How they realize that's part of what they need to do, and so I think there's a lot to be said. And again, that gets back to the embodying part. You know, we cannot compartmentalize our life anymore. We're this. I remember hearing from my higher self or me, whatever, a long time ago, and it said to me, when you can act and speak the same with every single person, regardless of who they are, on a one-on-one level, then you're there. And of course, obviously, that means it doesn't just mean you're an asshole with everybody. What it means is, of course, being in that state that you can't deny, that peace, the soul, the bliss, and that type of thing.
It's funny you should say that, mate, because 2 years ago on Christmas Eve, my dad went into the world of spirit, and I've been brought up as my brothers and sisters were with the tales of Tarzan and the Jungle Book, and all things Rudyard Kipling. And my dad he raised us with a poem called If. It's a very famous poem, and I put it on my website. In fact, I might click it onto the link here, but
why don't you do that? I'm a poet, and I love Rudyard Kipling. I love him.
But my dad would recite things like, "If you can meet with triumph and disaster, and treat those two imposters just the same, because they are, aren't they? They're, egomaniacally. The ego wants to either be king of the castle or wants to be the worst treated person on the planet. My pain is worse than your pain and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so, if you can walk with kings but keep your common touch and stuff like this. So that's to me about being completely and utterly emotionally calm, without suppression, without repression, in all situations, except when your life is threatened physically, because I think that most people are super sensitive now. You can say a word to them, and they have an emotional reaction because you can't use that word. It's not correct. It's bollocks, mate. It's probably can't use that word. That'll probably upset some people as well. Not on this channel, but in where I work, it will be not allowed. But I think in the end,
what does bollocks mean? I mean, there was an album by the Sex Pistols.
Bollocks means nonsense. It just means what a load of old bollocks. Bollocks are testicles, aren't they? So it's all to do with all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think bollocks means what bullshit means in Texas.
Yeah. BS. Belief systems, bullshit, and bollocks.
That poem you were talking about. I think I know which one that is. Because it's similar to what your dad was saying to you, isn't it? It gives the two different extremes, and it goes down a list.
Yeah, and it's the middle way, mate. It's what the Buddhists might call a bit. I don't know everything about Buddhist philosophy, but become mindful of your breathing, right? Because that's where the heart balances out the yin and the yang, and the left and the right. So again, the heart, in my view, is the moderator. you know.
Absolutely.
A-
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
what I've learned from my scientific background is that if you breathe gently, or you allow your breath to come through at around about 6 breaths per minute, right? What actually happens is it brings the two of them together, and that's where the sacred union starts to work. And the more you can stay in that coherent point, the more that the heart opens, and the more that the sacred child, which is the soul to me, the more that that actually helps mum and dad to get back together and lead a more perfectly happy, balanced married life, you know. And I can see that starts to do that then, and work its way through the chakras in a balanced way, you know. And it's so simple. And as you so rightly said the last time we met, you know, medicine doesn't really want to know this, right? Because it's so simple. And what we're looking for is right under our nose. It's right there. And it's called heart centeredness, you know. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to teach people now um, practical techniques to get back into feeling their heart intelligence, but to keep their feet firmly planted on the ground. You know,
Yeah.
so
That's,
that's my sort of job is to do that, and not to tell them what to do, just to make suggestions and say, look, this is what I found works for me, and I put my hands on there like a little angel, you know, and because it works with kids this as well, you know, and kids respond to this because they like the angel and they like all those sort of different things. So that's
yeah.
what I'm up to, mate. And you know, I'm trying to refine this more and more. Every day I tune in and I say, just show me how this message can be passed in a much more efficient way, you know. And that's
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Which sounds like we do have the same conversations. You know, we have a lot of similarities, you and I. Speaking of poetry, and when you brought up that Kipling in that poem, I had this one come up today. I wrote it right when I came off the streets. You know, it comes up on those Facebook memories,
Yeah.
and it was from October 2013. So what was that? 5 years ago? Yeah, that was about 2 months when I came off the streets. So it reminds me of what we're talking about. So I don't think there's any coincidences. That's why I'm going to read it. So it says, you have not walked in my shoes, and I have not walked in yours. If one of us claims to know the other, just remember a partial truth serves the lie and is no truth at all, but rather the ego's crass conjecture. Let us not judge from prejudice or pain. Let us not judge by paying homage to the false image we hold of ourselves, as we compare, complain, and compete with others, always at the mortal expense of another. Forgive me, my sister, my child, my mother. Forgive me, my father, my lover, my brother. Accept me for who I am and what I aim to be, rather than who I was or what you think you see. And for you, I will do the same, and only then will the light come in with no one left for us to blame. I am soul, I am open-minded. You know, that seems appropriate for this conversation,
It
you know,
does.
because, yeah,
Yeah, because we are individual. Like I said the other day, it's all about collective individuality. Each one of us, in my mind, has a specific gift. We've got a specific piece of the jigsaw, and I don't see a
yeah,
flatland piece jigsaw. I see it as a spherical thing, where the
yeah,
jigsaw piece we've got, right, needs to go into one part of the sphere. And in that way, there's no higher or lower, there's no
no,
this or that.
no,
Everybody is important as everybody else, you know. So because even the dull and ignorant have their story, and that's another poem that I love, the Desiderata. You know, go placidly amidst the noise and haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. And I think that the world is always trying to keep us distracted by noise, by bright lights and stuff like that. And sometimes, this is my feeling, sometimes we need to withdraw into the dark, into the quiet, and just be totally alone, because
yeah,
we're never alone, just
yeah,
totally alone in the depth of our soul, really. And that's when
yeah.
all the magic happens, you know. I feel like the Pope today, or Father Delaney in Nomini Patris et Filio et Spiritus. I feel like blessing everybody, you know. And I don't mean to be disrespectful. It's just a little light-hearted joke, really.
Well, yeah. See, and that's the thing too. I actually saw a little post today about the Catholic Church and the Vatican stance on what was it? I think it was on punishment or hell or something like that. And And I wanted to go into, fuck those bastards, but I know that, the thing is that there is no us and them. We don't know, we can't understand all the super incredible cosmic dynamic complexities of how we set this all up. So to get caught up in those stories is no different than getting caught up in any other stories, like you were talking about earlier. The ego wants to be the hero or the victim, right? Here you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's that?
Come on, Morgan. Let's see you.
Joe says, come on. He wants to see you. Joe wants to see you. Everybody wants to see you.
Hello, darling. Oh, how lovely. Mwah, mwah. Lovely.
Yeah. You were getting into some good stuff here. I'm looking forward to continuing to collaborate. Now, just for some of those people, because this show was a little bit different. They didn't let us start out right. Let's talk about a couple of things real quick. One, where can people find you?
I've got a website. In the new year, I'm having somebody soup it up for me, and because I've got a feeling now that I've got to come out of hiding and get my face known, really, and deliver this information. That's the way it's got to go. So I've got a website at the moment, just simply drjoedelaney.com. I'll put this in the comments anyway.
Yeah.
And on there's some links to things like Instagram and Facebook and things like that. But what I'm going to do in the new year is I'm going to do some free conference calls, and I'm going to do some live Facebook things and stuff like that. So that's the plan. That's what I feel I need to do.
Good.
It's just going to happen, mate. I can just feel it rolling out now.
Well, I think there's a lot of things coming into alignment and converging. And the other thing I wanted to bring up too, because I need to start talking about it a little bit more, is we are very, very close to rolling out an independent network, independent signal, independent server that will have, we'll have 1 to 4 channels when we start it. And those channels will all be running 24 hours a day. The idea is to put people out there. It's a platform for people like you, and to put them out there, and actually to get them to the point where they have enough footage, be it videos of free conferences they've done on webinars or whatever it may be, that where they actually have their own channel running on the network 24 hours a day. There's a 5D commerce component to it. The idea behind it, obviously we're talking about the SologyNetwork.org. It's not live yet unless you have a password to get in. But the thing is, we're very, very close. So the idea is to bring all the Joes and Todds and the people that are out there that have developed an archival, database of their stuff, and just to keep adding more and more channels to it. Making it available on a custom handheld app, a custom app for handhelds, whether you have Apple or Android. So I'm saying this for everybody because I will be talking about it more in the next few days. It could launch, in the next few days. I've got in a little bit of a state of a flux right now, so we've got to stabilize that. Once we do that and we have a secure internet, then we'll be able to hook up our tech stuff and push the buttons and have, probably 4 channels when we start, 4 channels running. But I'd love to assist you if you need it. I'm just telling you that straight up. If you want to do any type of webinar, any type of anything online, and you need any assistance, and that includes in terms of expanding the awareness of what you're doing, then I'm here to support you. Sology's here to support you, because it is time for you to come out, and many, many others that have been standing in the background and doing this work for a long, long time. That's coming into alignment, and I'm seeing that every day in my work. So that is a standing offer for you.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate that. I do feel that will all fall into place. And, all I've got really is my experience, my strength, and my hope, Some people, excuse me. That's all I can offer, really. But I think as this shift is ramping up more and more, people are they're basically falling apart and disintegrating before my eyes, So I think
Oh
you're
yeah.
just there at the right place. Guide them with similar principles. Make
Or
suggestions, not tell
yeah,
anybody, and just
yeah.
see if they take the bait and stuff like that, So that's what I'm there for, really. And
Or let them watch them
yeah, yeah,
walk off the cliff.
yeah.
Watch them
But
walk off
sometimes
the
you got to
cliff.
punch. I like the expression, what do you say about let go or be dragged or something like that? That Zen one,
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I
Let
believe
go.
that sometimes, you have to punch with love. You have to knock people out, right? Like
I
if they were,
yeah, yeah.
and I think to keep sending them love while they're drowning and waving their hands, you think it misses the point. Sometimes you got to dive in, swim over to them, knock them out, drag them to the shore, and say, off you go now, and stop messing about. So,
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah. That's a good
I've
way
been
to.
brought up in the school of hard knocks, when it comes
Yeah,
to spirituality, and
yeah,
sometimes I can laugh and joke, but sometimes I really take no shit whatsoever, because I can see
yeah,
clearly what needs to be done.
yeah. I'm the same way. I've just learned to. I used to call it, hitting them between the etherical eyes,
Absolutely.
and then having a more divine feminine influence over the last couple of years. I've softened it a little bit. So now I kind of have this thing where, when in doubt, watch them walk over the cliff.
Yeah.
And don't say anything, because really, ultimately, we're all going to get there.
Yeah.
It's and the more I focus on other people, if that's where my focus is, if it's in my work, maybe that's different. If I'm a practitioner, which I'm not,
Yeah.
but if it's something that's got any type of self-righteousness in it, there's judgment there, there's superiority, inferiority, there's a line of distinction there. It's called separation.
Yeah.
And so I'm contributing to that. So sometimes it's better to say nothing. And for me, anyway. And again, to use your words of wisdom, that's just my opinion. I don't know if it works for everybody, but for somebody who was a very alpha, that's seemed to work for me.
Yeah, yeah. I think the best place to be is the beta male now. Is just keep watching, and just sort of be a bit more wise and step back a bit. Let the alpha do all the work, and when he's exhausted, just sneak in and steal the woman. I've just had another thing is, when in doubt, this is what you just said. When in doubt, I'm going to add my bit now. Knock them out.
When in doubt, knock them out. Yeah.
No, so we're doing all right, mate. I mean, I feel great. I feel like I'm open and flowing, and that's really the only guidance I've got now. That I'm open and flowing, and I've got a chuckle going. Then I just keep going,
Yeah, and I think open is obviously huge. Like the poem I read, "I am soul, I am open-minded," and that includes everything. There is nothing it doesn't include. The other thing I think too that we often miss is the most important communication we receive from the universe, because we're receiving communication constantly. You can, I could go into your house, look around the room you're in. I could see a lot of things. You know what I mean? I mean, it's there. It's like a landscape. But the most important communication we're receiving is what comes out of our own mouth, whether we're talking about ourselves or other people.
Couldn't
that's
agree
a
more.
big one. Yeah.
I think if we're giving any information out to anybody else, it should go through them, background and back into our own ears then, because it's always for us,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, do you have that Kipling poem handy?
I think.
You think you can pull that up?
It's on my Facebook. I think what I can do is in the comments afterwards, I'll chuck it in there if that's okay, or what's the best way to do it?
Well, you could just pull up a Google window. What's the name of the poem?
It's just called If. Yeah. If by Rudyard Kipling.
Yeah, he's great. I just watched The Jungle Book the other day. I loved it.
Well, that was unbelievable because, I mean, as I say, we were brought up with tales of Tarzan and the Jungle Book and stuff, and I had my mum and my brother here with us for Christmas, and it was amazing how we were just talking about my dad, and I put a tribute up on my Facebook page to my dad, all about the Jungle Book, and then the next day it comes up on the television as well. So I mean, and then there was all sorts of 3 going on at the same time. So I thought, God bless you, Dad. I know you're looking after us.
Yeah.
So I can't find it. I don't know how that
Here
works.
it is. I found it. It's called If. Yeah. Let's see. It says, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or be lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, and if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except a will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, if you can feel the unforgiving mimic, with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. Yeah, I remember that poem. That's a great poem.
No, it's brilliant, mate. And I aspire to try and get close to some of them things, and it's getting closer more and more.
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate it. Let's do it again soon.
Yeah.
I hope to be settled. Soon, and get stabilized and get this thing launched. And I'll be talking to you about that.
Great.
So, and we'll be doing our broadcast will actually be done from the website, and it looks like we'll only have clips run on social media, but we'll make it very easy for people to get to us. The clips will be just 2 or 3 minute teasers of the shows.
Yeah.
Push this link and then go to the website. You can watch the whole thing. So we're going to make it as seamless as possible for our community. We think there's going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 25, 30, 40,000 members in the community in a very short period of time. And I'd say a few weeks. So we're looking forward to it, and we've got to make the plunge. We got to jump in, and sometimes you jump off the cliff, and sometimes you're pushed off the cliff. But it's not really going to kill you when you hit the bottom. You know that. No.
And also, I've just been told that you can already breathe underwater. So what are you worried about?
That's right. We're fish too. We have gills. Take it easy, Dr. Joe.
Yeah. Thanks very much, mate. God bless you.
All right. You take care.